All right, everyone, welcome to the 389th edition of the Holy Backboard Podcast. I'm Dustin here in sunny Rip City, and I got my man.
Yo, what is up, everybody? It is Lunar New Year, and my family would say Gung Hee Fat Toy. Happy New Year to all. Yeah, I am ready to talk about these Blazers, and yeah, excited to be seeing you on this holiday.
Absolutely. Before we dive into it, quick programming note. We usually record on Wednesdays. Obviously, next Thursday is the trade deadline, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to record Wednesday when there may be a deal Thursday morning, Wednesday night. So you'll probably hear from us shortly after the deadline. So this will be our last episode pre-deadline in case something massive happens on like a Sunday or a Monday, something along those lines. But with that said, let's get into it. The Blazers currently are 18 and 29 on the season, tied with Philadelphia in the win column for that seventh, eighth place in the draft lottery. Unfortunately, if you are into those ping pong odds, the Blazers are have now created a gap of 4 games between 6 and 7. And if they get a little hotter, they're only 2 wins shy of matching San Antonio and Chicago, both with 20 wins. Just something to keep in mind. But the Blazers have won 5 of their past 6 games. We will discuss the games that took place over the past week. They continued their southeastern road trip, uh, really manhandling the Orlando Magic. In Orlando, 101 to 79, absolutely smothered Paolo Banchero to maybe his worst performance as a
Mhm.
professional. And then they almost coughed it up against the Hornets, who the Hornets definitely understood the assignment there, sitting damn near everyone and their mother except for Mark Williams, and the Blazers still escaped 102 to 97. They returned home to start a 7 game homestand against the league leading Oklahoma City Thunder. I thought they played a ceiling game. They
Mhm.
shot what 45% from three on 40 plus attempts. Still lost by 10. The game was really never in doubt. 118 to 108. And then Dame's return, we all knew the Blazers were going to get up for it. It was also their lone national televised appearance on TNT. Ran away from the Bucks in the second half, 125 to 112, running the record to again 18 and 29 on the season. Sage, I want to kick things off with the Blazer forwards, right? I think throughout this recent uptick in play and competitiveness, I think you can really point to Toumani Camara and Deni Avdija
Mhm.
uh, as kind of cogs in that wheel that have kind of got this thing back on track. What do you what do you make of this duo? Both 24 years old. It was a little surprising for me to find out that Toumani is turning 25 this year, so he is definitely a older sophomore player. Obviously, Deni was drafted in 2020 as a young player coming over from Europe. But what do you make of the forwards? What do you make of what they bring to the Blazers on a nightly basis, and how much potential? Um, do you see still in the tank for these two wings that the Blazers have?
I think they're both Paulo's kind of the perfect guy for them to defend because he's not the most elusive or fast. So Toumani can get up and cut off angles and be really, really aggressive. Um, Deni, I think, is our best player currently, but I think right now what you're seeing is two guys that are really aggressive defensively and they are empowered to be aggressive defensively by the coaching staff and kind of can do whatever they want. Now, we can say to our detriment too, because a lot of times it becomes a 4-on-3 defensively, but if the guard or the forward with the ball in their hand isn't equipped to pass it, it's a really great strategy, but it's kind of been their MO to just be incredibly aggressive defensively. Um, I mean, I think that I think Toumani needs to develop something offensively when it's not cutting or shooting because I don't think he's comfortable in the decision-making role, and it's obvious to see, but he needs to do something else offensively to keep him on the floor. As much as he's great defensively, I still put him at like a Haywood Highsmith, Jaden McDaniels type of thing. Like if the offense isn't going, the defense is great, but in clutch time, he might have to be on the bench if he's not able to do anything offensively. He's kind of at the whim of a Deni, an Ant, or a Scoot getting him the ball and having them manufacture something. Um, but I would really like him to develop that in the off season because right now there's not much he can do while it's in season. There's not that much development in terms of, playmaking. Uh,
Let's stick with Toumani for a second because and then we'll switch over and I'll tee it up for you to talk on Deni. For Toumani, the role has been much enhanced this season. He started 49 games last year. He's already started 45. He's playing 32 minutes. That's up from 25 last year. But he's one of those players that the statistical numbers aren't really going to pop off the
mm,
page when you look at year over year improvement, right? Like when I saw that he was only averaging 10 points per game, that surprised me. I thought he was closer to 13 or 14. He averaged 7.5 last year. Yes, he is shooting 35% from three last year or this year, but he shot 34 last year on similar volume. He's taking about 1.5 more per game this year. The rebounds are up just slightly by zero point 0.8. The assists by one, same amount of steals, half a steal more, same amount of blocks. Excuse me. The overall field goal percentage is down 1%, but when he's on the court, I guess statistically it's hard to measure um, just those, I think I call them deflating plays, and he does them a lot, especially if like there's a loose ball, he's going out there and grabbing it and putting it back in for two. Um, I think even though the numbers say statistically he's similar from downtown, I feel more confident in him shooting off of the catch and shoot. But for Toumani to and I know a lot of Blazer fans probably have him in their untouchable list. And I understand that. Like these two forwards are arguably the best crop of young forwards that we've had since, the Blazers in 2000
yeah.
or even go back to the early 90s with, Jerome and Buck. I think they're starting to separate themselves from what we had with the Rise With Us era, whether it was, Martell Webster and Travis Outlaw. Obviously, LaMarcus plays a big role in that, so maybe that era has some say in that. But either way, they're the best group of young forwards Portland has had in a long while, right?
For
We
sure.
were so used to Harkless and Aminu, no disrespect, but it is an improvement. And it's improvement on both sides of the ball. But you're right. I think if I was running this organization, I'm not. No one is untouchable, right? And I think it's important to have a self-awareness about the player that we have in Camara. Because if he was doing this at 21 or 22, I think the price tag goes
Oh, it's much
out of
higher.
this
Age is
out
going to
of
be a
this
factor.
out of this world, out of the stratosphere. But he is turning 25 in just 3 months, and I don't think that is the end all be all that we can write it off and saying this is who Toumani is as a peak player. But you're absolutely right. I think for Portland to take the next step and become, a perennial all defensive player, to become more than just a catch and shoot player, he's going to need to put the ball on the floor. And whether it's develop a little pull up, whether it's develop, a
More
1-2
craft around the
move
basket.
to get to the
Mhm.
basket. But even just making a decision, making another pass. I don't think you fully trust Toumani
Oh
with the
no,
ball.
I feel like it's very Aminu-like in his decision making of frantic movement and like it might be the good decision, but it honestly could result in a pretty devastating turnover. And I think that what you just said kind of separates our two thought processes about basketball. I'm very analytically forward with what I'm seeing, and it's like, well, I know he plays good defense, but he really isn't giving me the like. I bet his unders pretty consistently because I know that there's going to be nights where he's good, but there's going to be more nights when he's bad. So it's like I don't really expect much from the offensive end. The defense is great, and we've empowered him to be good. We've empowered him. Like you listen to the broadcast, and it's all about look what we have here. He's this really good player, and I think he's good. But I, where I'm right at right now, I kind of think of him as a seventh man that's playing starters minutes because we don't have the quality of other players around him. So like in my personal world, he's like yeah, he's doing great, but I don't think he's going to be a starter if we become a championship team. I think we put him he's on the bench and he plays more if it's a matchup where he can be effective. But that's just
Yeah,
me and my
no, I think that that's a fair evaluation of Camara, and I think you saw the highs and lows of him even during this hot streak, right? He played well against Bankero. I thought he did a really nice job on Dame in the second half. Dame really was never comfortable, didn't get many clean looks. They really hounded Lillard, but Shea went looked like 75 speed.
Mhm.
And still had 30 plus, made it look easy on Toumani. Toumani even talked about it post game. He had a 5 for 5 from downtown, fantastic offensive performance, but really did not establish any sort of you know will against Gilgeous Alexander. And that's where if you're talking about a player who's limited offensively, if you're going to say, okay, if you're going to be the guy defensively, you can even as good as Shea is, you have to enforce
Slow
your
him down a
will.
bit.
You
Yeah.
have to make him feel your presence. And he's not there yet. So if you're looking for growth for Camara outside of just raw numbers. You need to see how he's defending all types of teams' top scores because everyone plays a different way. But switching over to Deni, what have you liked from him since his slow start to the year?
I think it like it's tough because Denny needs the ball to be good unless he's hot shooting. And at the beginning of the year, he wasn't getting the ball in places where he could be effective. And now teammates are learning about Denny more. He has more of a green light with him and his teammates. So he's finally producing offensively, albeit it might not be the prettiest or the most aesthetically pleasing. He's putting up numbers, he's getting statistics, but it's come from a lot of usage on Deni Avdija. There are games where he's hitting corner threes, top of the wing threes. But man, most of his work, he has the ball and he's taking advantage of his size, speed combination against smaller and weaker players. And again, in the I think regular season, Denny having the ball in his hands is pretty nice. I don't know what happens in high leverage ball, and I would like some of the usage that he is getting. And honestly, I bet his usage rate right now is crazy high for what his role will be. Like I would like some of that usage to go to Scoot, would like it to go to Shaden. I think honestly, Denny kind of he makes the gosh darn play sometimes, but I think the fact that the ball is in his hands so much hurts the team in terms of like I'm going to get the ball eventually type of thing. And, where Jeremy Grant takes an atrocious shot, it's because he hasn't touched the ball in a while. I think Denny contributes to that, not as much as Ant, but he definitely contributes to it a lot because he has two things on his mind: get to the hoop and either make a pass or he's gonna lay it up. So I like
Yeah,
what he's doing, but he needs to scale back in a serious team. We're completely and totally unserious, so he can do it, but there's a lot of
that's
driving mechanically to the hoop for me.
that's my biggest fear when I watch him, go off for 30 points and have a ceiling game is that the Blazers like, oh, we found our new guy, right? That
Mhm.
this is the new Dame. He's going to lead the team, be the high usage man, and he's not that. Like I want to make it abundantly clear, Denny is not that. He is a really solid player who is having the best month of his career right now. He's averaging 19 points, 8.5 boards, 4 assists, almost 2 steals, playing 35 minutes a night, taking 13 shots, um, over 50% from the field. The 3-point percentage has come back down to life a little bit, 32%. But he is getting to the line over 5 times a night. He is very tough in transition when he gets the ball going downhill. I have a little bit of reserve of him as a postseason player. Like
Oh yeah.
let's make no mistake about it. Like Giannis gets away with putting his head down and going because he is 3, 4 inches taller. He's longer. He's more athletic, and he's stronger. Right? He's able to find margins of error in the defense to lay the ball up and dunk, and he's just more explosive. Deni, as we saw in the Thunder game when that started to get away, they started to figure out how to defend him on the fast break, and he stumbled over himself a few times. He threw the ball away. Like Toumani, I still don't think he is capable of doing much off the
Do
dribble.
you
Like he,
think Denny's a sixth man, or do you think he's a starter on a contending team?
oh no, I think he's giving me the fourth option on a starting team. Like you could throw him. I don't know. He's playing really well. Like, but you said like, and I think what he can do can be reduced in usage, and he can still
It's the
thrive.
scale down thing
I
that,
would just
we
he
talk about
can
with
be
draft
scaled
picks.
down. I would like to be him scaled down. I would like to him to be little bit better on defense. I would like him to take a little bit less shots, but spray the ball around more. But this is what the Blazers are lacking, and it's why I think they perform the best when Scoot is out there with the ball in his hands because he's looking. He's looking for Aiton. He's looking for the hot hand, whether it's Simons or Toumani. And he knows when to get out in transition to Deni. He's a great teammate. And I think you need more players who are willing to share the ball. Like when the defense doesn't know where it's coming from, it's going to be more difficult for them to defend. But in a 7 game series, when it's half court, like
It's
let's
slower
remember
and teams are
it's
better.
teams are more focused on defense. You get more
Mhm.
time to make adjustments. The pace really tightens up, and you're going to lose those transition opportunities. And then if you're just going to give the ball to Deni at the top of the key and try to see if he's going to, get his head down and go to the basket, one, the referees, they call the games different in the postseason. A lot more contact is going to get let go. And two, I think defenses are going to be able to kind of put up that wall and maybe suffocate those attempts much more than they are in the regular season. Like I'm not trying to take anything off of these forwards. I think they're playing fantastic basketball right now, but just to put everything into context, right? Because just 2 weeks ago we were losing to the Brooklyn Nets. We have lost to the Jazz and the depleted
Mm.
Grizzlies by a combined like 80, 90 points. Like this team is who they are. It's a reason they're still 11 games under 500 and, away from even sniffing the play-in, right? They may be
Mm.
throwing their lottery chances out the door, but they are nowhere near sniffing the play-in. So I think you can be excited about the recent play. I think you can be happy with what you've seen from the young forwards, but I also think there needs to be a little bit of awareness about who they are, how they can improve, and potentially what is their ceiling. And we may get an answer to that question, Sage, in the draft. Let's say the Blazers stay at seventh. They get some 2007 luck, right? They were seventh going into that draft. They won the lottery, or they even make their way into the top four. I have two questions for you, Sage. Let's say the Blazers get the number 1 pick and they draft Cooper Flag. Clearly, Cooper's going to come in and start.
Yes.
You now probably have to trade Deni or Toumani because I don't
Mhm.
think you want to put either on the bench, and both have sky high value right now. If you draft Cooper, which one of those forwards are you squeezing out and sending to the trade market?
I would be asking around and asking what of those two players has the higher value, and then trade the higher value player.
Okay, let's say that's not just play wise, style wise,
Okay.
chemistry. How can they um, play well with one another? Like who
I probably keep Tumani
I
because
would I would as well in that
Denny's
situation.
usage is an issue. I think Tumani plays better with more players than Denny because you kind of have to. You saw it at the beginning of the year. You had to mold to Denny. Tumani molds to the players around him more so than Denny, who's kind of I need my usage, I need my drives per game. So if Cooper Flag was drafted by the Blazers, I would trade Denny unless somebody was offering us a Godfather offer for Toumani.
I would as well because Cooper has the ball in his hands a lot. He's a playmaker, an unselfish playmaker, but
And
he
he's
has the
better.
ball. Yeah, he has the ball in his hands,
Mhm.
and I just think Toumani is a better fit stylistically alongside of Cooper. But let's say the Blazers get the third or fourth pick and they select Ace Bailey. Stylistically, which one of our forwards plays better with Ace?
Ooh, that's tough. I still would probably go Toumani because Ace is also a guy that needs his shots and needs his opportunities. So I'd probably still go Toumani. Honestly, if you go with Kasparas, I'd still probably go Toumani.
That's interesting. I think stylistically, I think Avdija plays better with a player like Bailey because I still believe that you can scale down Deni, and I think you can turn him into more of a facilitator, someone who can maybe get ace better looks rather than relying on Bailey early on in his career to try to go one on one. And he does have those shot selection issues at the moment.
Yeah.
But either way, it is a fun question.
But are you thinking about this in rookie year Ace Bailey or year five Ace Bailey?
No, first contract Ace Bailey.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Because I'm also thinking about it. If Ace Bailey hits, Toumani's significantly better in terms of pairing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But there is a chance that Ace Bailey is just more
Ace
of a
Bailey
cut.
could easily, he could fail. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
One in five top five picks fail.
Yeah. And so just the point of this thought exercise was like the Blazers need to look at past history and not commit to those mistakes that they made, right? We talked about how good Jerome and Buck were for those early 90s
Uh-huh.
Blazers. Let's also not forget they had an all-star center in Duckworth. They had the sixth man of the year in Cliff Robinson. They had a multi all-star and second best point guard in team history in Terry Porter, and arguably the
Like,
greatest Blazer of all time in
yeah,
Clyde Drexler. And they still didn't get it done. And to further kind of enhance this point, they had the opportunity to improve on those forwards and they did not do
didn't.
it.
Yeah.
Charles Barkley flew out on his own dime to Portland in 91 after they lost to the Lakers and like, hey, I can take you over the mountaintop. There were rumors it was any combination of Jerome, Duck, Buck, Danny Ainge, not all four, like two and a first. Like it was when you look back at it, it would have been an absolute steal. And it pains me because I adore the early 90s Blazers and that core six that they had. But Barkley was the MVP 2 years later.
Yeah.
Right? He got Phoenix over the hump to the finals. Um, I
Clyde
think
and
with
Barkley
Barkley,
would
the
have been
Blazers, the
devastating.
Blazers win.
Yeah.
They have another banner up there. And so like just don't make the same mistakes. Like you may be, falling for some of these guys. And I don't want to be a downer in that sense, but also the goal is to win a championship. The goal is to be competitive. And if you have an opportunity to be better, do it. Right? Don't rest
Totally.
on your laurels. The Blazers have a history of doing so. It even dates back to that Rise with Us era, right? Kevin Pritchard thought he had everything figured out. The team without Odin went 41 and 41, but what did like every Blazer fan knows the acronym RLEC, Rafe LaFrentz expiring
Oh
contract.
yeah.
At the time, it was juicy. That's what teams were looking for, and he sat on it. His infamous quote, "We got to let the cake bake," and it didn't. They got smoked by Houston the next year in the postseason,
Mhm.
and they could have added instead of falling in love with players that you brought in. Always need to be looked to,
And I
improving.
get the love that people have for Deni and Toumani or Buck and going all the way back to the 90s Blazers. Like I get that. But if someone's offering real value for them, I'm really fine with saying peace to either of them or both of them. Like if somebody's willing to give us Tari Eason or something like that for them, I'm like, oh, yo, peace. Um, and
And I'm
I
I'm
think
turning
that
four. I'm turning 40 this year. I have not seen a conference finals win since I was 15. No one is untradeable. You come to me with a good offer that makes us better. Thank you for your service, but like I need to start seeing some
yeah,
form.
like I get it, man. You haven't seen it, your favorite team win a championship in your entire life. That's tough.
There's people who are 3 years after college that haven't seen the Blazers be competitive. So it's
Yeah.
you need so that's where the urgency comes from my end. And speaking of urgency, the trade deadline is right around the corner,
Hmm.
February 6th. We are 7 days and change away from it taking place. Fun game for you, Sage. We have four players if you're Joe Cronin, what is the urgency level in trading the following players? And I'm going to tee it up to you in a way of there's a scale. There's three answers to choose from, and it dates back to my wife whenever we're getting ready to make dish out food. She's like, "How hungry are you?" And I have a scale. First one is I can eat. Yeah, it's just regular. Second one is pretty dang hungry. Like, okay, like I'm pretty dang hungry. I can throw down. And the last one is Marvin. Like I need load up that plate in
Mhm.
probably seconds, right? So what is the urgency level? And I'll give you there's low, like yeah, that's a future me problem. We'll get to it later. There's a medium. Yeah, I probably should get around to doing that, like fixing that leaky faucet or installing that furnace heater. And then there's high, like Foreigner's urgent hits that record player, and it's urgent, emergency. Like it needs five alarm. We got to get this guy gone immediately. So, what is the urgency level for DeAndre Ayton?
None of these guys are going to be a one on the 1 to 3 scale. I just don't like, I would love for him to be gone. I just don't know if there's a buyer for what we're selling. So I think it's a medium, but I just don't see who would want him.
Yeah, I have him actually as a low, and the only reason I have him as a low is because of who Portland has. Right? They have Donovan Clingan. They're clearly not going to trade Clingan, but it's the second player on this list, Rob Williams. Rob Williams is the player that has the trade value, right?
Hmm.
And Aiton doesn't have the value. If you're lucky, you might get Aiton at the deadline next year, but at the very worst, you just have to eat one more year of his salary. Um, so that's why I have him as low. I believe Sam Vecini also did a top 40 trade value board on the Athletic. 39 was DeAndre Ayton. Number 40 is a player we'll discuss at the end of this list in Jeremy Grant. So the Blazers don't exactly have the most desirable contracts
Yeah.
around the league. I'm not trying to make an excuse for Joe Cronin. He's the one that put them in this position, but that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. So I have him for low just because I do think you need at least one center with Donovan. Um, I'll tee it up for you. Rob Williams, what's the urgency level on moving Rob, who has another year left on his deal after this year?
I mean, if this was NBA 2K and we could take out injuries, I would love to keep him. I just think that every time he plays, he scares the crap out of me with how he plays, how he ends up on the floor, how sensitive he is. So I think I would probably put it to the 3 just because of one bad fall and it's all gone and we're eating another year with him on the mend. So I would want to trade him pretty immediately or we're stuck with him because nobody's going to be willing to trade anything for him.
Yeah, I am
But I
absolutely
love
aligned.
Robert Williams.
I do too. On a different scenario, different day, different dollar. I'd love to keep him. But yeah, I'm firing up the record player. I got that Foreigner album. We're playing urgent because the reason is, as previously stated, no one is taking DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton is on your roster regardless. You're not trading Donovan Clingan. This whole play two centers, sit one, play two centers, sit one, rotating musical chairs, it is
Don't
not
work.
helping anyone's
Mm.
progress. It's not helping anyone's development. It would be different if Robert Williams was on a longer term contract and you could say, oh, yeah, we'll just wait. We'll do this one more year and we'll let DeAndre walk and then we can keep Robert
And we're
and
so new
Donovan
on the timeline
and
too.
and, and that's the direction we want to go. But if you can't play that game because DeAndre and Rob both expire at the same time. And
Exactly.
I don't, as much as Robert Williams kind of puts on a good front, I don't get the assumption that he would want to stick around in
No,
Portland.
he wants to compete for
He's
something.
used to playing in NBA finals with the
Yeah.
Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't want to be a part of this, consistent rebuild that we have here. You mentioned the injury concerns. I absolutely would love to get a first for him, but because they have Aiton, because they absolutely have to develop Donovan Clingan, I think you just take an expiring contract and some seconds as the bare minimum. And I know a lot of Blazer fans aren't going to want to hear that. I think you can get a first, but I think this is all about this exercise is all about like the urgency in removing the roadblocks from these three lottery picks that you selected that you have put a lot of time and effort and investment into.
Hmm.
And it's nothing against Rob. Like you said, would love to keep him. I think the team plays much better when he's in there. He offers things that the Blazers need: screens, rebounding, defense, perimeter, help, communication, veteran experience, effort, like everything you want, he brings. But given our circumstances, I think the situation is urgent, and also his value is high. Like
Hmm.
you have to strike while the iron is hot. And speaking of someone whose value might be upticking with his recent plays, Anthony Simons, what do you put the level for trading Ant?
We really need him gone. Just like Scoot, Shaden. He is the roadblock for both of these people, without a doubt. And bro, this is Denny's best season of his life. Ant still has the ball more than him. That the role, the minutes, all of the stuff that Anthony Simons is doing, and he had one of a very good game in national TV that should help, and he's putting up numbers. He has to be gone, and now that his value is a little bit higher, he we're putting him at 4 just because of all the other things it unlocks. It's again, I think Ant's a really like I think that he's dedicated to the himself to the game. He's improved so much, but you drafted two guys that he's a roadblock to. It has to be done. Like I need to know, is Shaden Sharp good enough? Is Scoot Henderson good enough? Anthony Simons is the barrier to that.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. You know, urgent plus to move Simons. Um, he's 26, 27 years old. We know who Anthony Simons is. We don't know who Toumani, who Deni, who Scoot, who Shaden. We don't know who they
Chris.
are yet.
Yeah.
Like I want to find out, and you're not able to when you have someone in their pathway.
Mhm.
Simons played 38 minutes last night, 25 and 7 with no turnovers, shot 50% from three, a respectable 9 of 17 from deep. But when you watch Anthony, he is the epitome of the Blazers at the moment. It's bad shot goes in, good, bad shot goes in, bad. Like
Mhm.
it's a lot of tough shots and they happen to fall. And I think you can't say, oh, we want to really give Anthony one more shot. And there's a couple of reasons for doing that because one, the Blazers are notorious in this stretch of Chauncey Billups era basketball of shutting guys down after the deadline
Mhm.
because you want to see Scoot and you want to see Shaden and you want to see the young players get run. So what you do by doing that is you tank any sort of positive momentum that Anthony has in the
Exactly.
trade market. The second, and I think maybe more importantly, and why I wish more Blazer GMs did more deadline moves instead of waiting for the offseason, is you never know how a season is going to play out. I also don't think any team is going to come out of the season saying, "Man, we were an Anthony Simons or a
The
James
way.
away from winning a championship."
Mhm.
But there's a team like the Detroit Pistons who preseason you would have never expected to be in the playoff hunt. They sustained an injury to their shooting guard. They may need Anthony Simons. You would have never expected after how they ascended last year that the Orlando Magic would be struggling a bit and that they
Mhm.
would be having issues with Contavious Caldwell Pope, their prize free agency signing. They really struggle from shooting downtown. They need some guard help. They may find an answer in the offseason elsewhere, right? Like, so you have to really take other teams' situations and find opportunities and turn them into an advantage. And
Mhm.
so that's why we both agree on Simons needing to go. And last one, and this is going to be a difficult one, but what's your urgency level on Jeremy Grant? And I say difficult because, as I mentioned, Sam Vecini, who I really enjoy reading and watching his content, in that top 40 trade value, Jeremy Grant was number 40 and called his contract the worst in the league. So if I'm not certain if every GM feels that way, but it's certainly never good when unbiased members of media have an
It's
outlook
Jamal
on it.
Murray has the worst contract in the league. I'm
Either
sorry.
way, the fact that it's up for debate could hurt his value. He's playing horrible this year.
Yeah, he is not Jeremy Grant right now. He's just not. He's playing like Again, Chris Murray is a better player right this second than Jeremy Grant. That shouldn't happen ever. So if I'm like Jeremy Grant's agent, I am pushing for some change of venue because he's just not playing good. And it's like Anthony Simons is definitely negatively affecting him. I think Deni Avdija is negatively affecting him. I think his efforts negatively affecting him. I think his decision making is negatively affecting him. If I'm Jeremy Grant, I respectfully ask out, and I think that it unlocks other things for the Blazers, like seeing if Chris Murray's worth it, seeing if Ryan Rupert can develop. So I think that it helps both the player and the team by trading him.
Yeah, I agree with that. There came a point in time in the offseason where it's like, oh, maybe we get two firsts for him, or maybe we could get a first. I don't know if that exists anymore. I think at this
Not with
point,
how he's played, bro. I mean,
yeah,
like,
I think he could help a contender. He's shown that he can thrive as the third or fourth, guy on a good team. Um, and so I think again, you need to strike while the iron's hot. Nobody thought Cleveland would have this start, and maybe they're looking to
improve the
push
small
more
forward.
chips in
Hmm.
and want more and not be satisfied. At this point, I would just take expiring salary. I think Cronin held on to him for too long. It's then we just have to
Yeah,
bite the bullet and say, we got to get this contract off of the books. Let's take a short break because I have to pee and we'll be
go
right
for it.
back.
Yeah, I would. One of the things that I think is interesting for the Anthony Simons thing is you saw him on national TV yesterday. So there's going to be coaches and coaching personnel that say like, you look what he can do. If we can teach him to be more aggressive, look at his gifts. Look at what he can do and provide for a team. And I think that's like we can't have him be that, but he obviously can be a really, really dynamic player with attacking on the inside out, playing defense. He has the capabilities, and I think one coach is going to say, I can change him, and that's going to be very like beneficial for the Blazers is if he sucked in that national TV game, it would have been really detrimental. I don't know if we could find something, but him doing well and people seeing it and being reminded of him, somebody right now is talking about how he can change Anthony and make him, as good as humanly possible. So,
I was listening, so you're chatting about Anthony. I completely agree. I would say that if I had my druthers after the All-Star break, the starting lineup would be Scoot, Shaden, Toumani, Deni, and Donovan. Like I
and
think
then
it's
Chris Six
important.
man.
Chris, Jabari, DeAndre is probably going to have to play. I still want Donovan to start or just at least play 20 half the game, right? I
Do you
understand
think Donovan could play half the game?
he has already.
Okay.
They need to one you need to see you need to throw him out there as long as he's healthy. But I want to get 2 full months of data on that unit, right? And
Mhm.
that's going to inform you on your deficiencies on players who kind of rises to the top, right? Is Scoot capable of leading this squad? Does Shaden look different without Anthony and Jeremy? He has in the past.
Mhm.
Right, and that's the big knock on him is he's not aggressive enough. But I think his
Do
personality
you
type.
think that's still an issue?
Yeah,
I don't. I see him jack awful shots when he has the. So I think aggression isn't the issue. I think it's opportunity. I think it's the opportunity issue, not the person. Because I see him take and make some really like aggressive shots. I think it's just plain and simple opportunity that
but he's
isn't.
more aggressive as the man than he is as just
Yeah,
like take
but
last night's
that
game.
that that's opportunity. That's not him as a dude.
Well, I think it's both. I think it's a combination because he switches his mindset when he is the guy, right? Like take last night's game for example. He comes off the bench, scored a quick 9 points, ended with 17 and 31 minutes, got up 14 shots. But like he did finish the game because Jeremy Grant's injury, but he didn't really touch the ball in the end of the quarter of the fourth. Everything felt like he was just like having a hot role player night, kind of like Scoot. Like, but the game was decided by Ant, Da, and Deni. Like those were the three, the big three that carried Portland home. And I want to see how Portland operates in a like, large sample size with Scoot, Shaden, Toumani, Deni, and Donovan.
But
Right?
isn't that coaching an opportunity that it
It's
reverted
not.
him into a role?
It's everything. It's
Yeah,
Shaden himself. It's the coach, but the coach coaching for wins. But it's Joe Cronin.
yeah,
Like that's
I
what
think it's a causation of all of the
yeah.
things that are happening with the team. I like if he is given the runway, I think he takes it and is pretty aggressive with his shot. I just think the
He has. We saw it
opportunity.
his rookie year.
Yeah. No,
He
it's the
closed.
opportunity cost of everybody else. It's not Shaden Sharp.
I
Even in
still want to
these,
say it is a bit of Shaden because you take Denny for example, right? Denny kind of is a take a bull by the horns, and he's like, they need me to score tonight, be aggressive. I'm going to take that usage because nobody else is stepping up and taking it. Shaden's just not that guy. Like he needs to. He's kind of like me. Like he needs to be told, okay, you're the guy, and you got nobody looking over you. Like go. Like I would not be a player like Danny who's like, I'm just gonna go take this. Like so, I have a
I would
similar.
agree with you on the first 2 years. I see a different dude this year as opposed to the previous years.
I mean, I just it's what I saw when we had that stretch in November when Ant was out and he was getting starters run, and he was getting main guy run. Like even Jeremy took a back seat. So there's only one way to find out, and it's to open the runway and to
Hmm.
see like, and if he doesn't take it when Anthony is gone, if that happens, then I think you can start to question if he's a long-term piece, right? Because that's been like the one like if you're a Shaden defender or not, the big piece is like there's a blockage ahead of him.
Hmm.
But if you remove that and you still have questions, then I think it's time to question whether he's a long-term franchise cornerstone. So that's why you want to see more just data on these young players that have came through these drafts because when you watch the Blazers and even as like fun as the games can be, it's hard when you see games like the Heat. I know they were up by 27 in the third, but you had Grant, Ayton, and Simons taking 48 of 87 shots.
Hmm.
That's 56%. Um,
Did
without
you, how do you feel about the bullshit of his defense is bad, that's why he's benched?
I mean, we discussed it last
Oh, we
episode.
did.
I thought it was weird that they made an example out of him, but not Aiton, not Simons, not Grant. Grant's having the worst year of his, starting career, and just automatically gets reinserted into the lineup. Same thing with Simon.
Yeah, it's just toxic from
It's a
top to
great
down.
way to ruin any sort of like confidence, I think, in a
Well,
young
like yeah,
player.
especially with Scoot too.
Yeah. And we saw Scoot had a couple of rough games adjusting to coming back off of the bench.
That's a humongous adjustment from going like I have freedom to I am stuck in a role.
Stuck in a role,
That
minutes are
doesn't suit
limited.
me. Like if it suited him, he would do well. It just doesn't. It like him. He's shot better, but I'm letting him shoot if I'm the defensive player. If he has the ball, like if it gets swung to him and he doesn't drive, shoot it all you want, Playboy.
And like in a game against the Hornets, where we clearly should have prioritized development, Aiton didn't play, but Simons and Grant accounted for 43% of the field goal attempts.
Mhm.
Last
And
night,
probably like 75 minutes of the 48-minute start, like
and
the
even
potential
last
minute.
night, Jeremy left due to injury, but that big three accounted for 46% of our field goal attempts. So it's like,
Yeah.
yes, they're winning. It does feel a little hollow. I would rather them win. Like, if you would tell me that that starting lineup that I want to see is out there balling like they're playing now, winning 5 of 6, I would say
That's dope.
fuck
Yeah,
the
that's
draft
dope.
lottery.
Yeah.
You're seeing real growth and development. But when it's coming from players who clearly aren't on the roster long term, it's just a big fuck you to the
Development. Yeah.
development of the players, of the fans who are just desperate for a an organic winner. Like I
Mm.
don't want to do what the Kings did and 1 year we make the playoffs and now we're fighting for play-in and your best players requesting out. Like I don't want to be that. I want to be
Mm.
a consistent team that can get to the top and stay there. And you don't get that by playing players who have a defined ceiling over unknowns at this point. Before we wrap up the show, I wanted to get one thought from you, Sage. Obviously, it's trade rumor season. Adrian Wojnarowski retired. More reporters are moving away from Twitter to whether it's Blue Sky or it's their own domains, whether it's
Substack.
I know it's NFL, but Adam Schefter all of his updates come from the ESPN app. I
Mm.
know Mark Stein, um, and Jake Fisher do a lot on Substack. There's a lot of podcasts content as well that they're creating. So it's not as readily available. Shams, his stuff is even few and far between. He's doing most of his stuff on network now. I think that's a clear strategical move on ESPN's part. Has it feels like it's been harder to follow the rumors, and I feel like it's going to be a lot easier for people to get duped with
Oh, totally.
fake news that's coming out. What are your thoughts on how it used to be and how it is now?
So, I mean, if we're talking about X and we're talking about basketball, I think you got to tell me what you need. Is it like, so my needs for Twitter information is I need to know about injuries and people being in and out of a lineup. For what I personally need, I go to Underdog Fantasy, the NBA, and ring the bell for notifications from Twitter. But that's because of what I want and need
Yeah,
is
that's
that
specifically,
information.
I'm talking about just trade rumors,
Yeah.
trade news.
So for that, I like it's just you're gonna get duped if you rely only on Twitter or X for that. But if it's other things, I think you can get everything from the Underdog NBA app. I think that is probably the best source of information that you can get from any outside source. They give you the injury issues and notes before anything else. You asked me, is Giannis playing? Well, I'm like, I'll know in about 2 minutes, and it's the Underdog app. I know before Danny Meringue or whoever the Rip City injury thing shows. I know this stuff before anybody else. So I think Underdog NBA, and they also post uh the trade rumors and stuff. So I think if you're looking for any information, let me find the actual uh thing so I can give the right information. But for me, I look at sorry about that. I look at underdog underscore NBA for all of my stuff. And secondarily, if you really want to if you're a real sicko and want all the information, there's a guy that does DFS. His name is News God DFS, who gives you all of the information too. But if you're looking for trade stuff that's authentic, it's Shams and it's Underdog NBA for that, for me. But
Yeah.
again, you're gonna get duped if it's anything other than
Yeah, I
verified
found it's
sources.
just fewer news is being dropped. Chris Haynes doesn't drop as much news as he
Mm,
used to. I'm not subscribed to Mark Stein and Jake Fisher and their Substack, so I'm sure there is stuff there, but it's behind a paywall. So it's almost like we're back. It's not quite as when it was just, listen to the local like sports talk radio and like this is what they're hearing, or maybe you'd get news in the paper.
mhm,
Like back, I remember like even when the Blazers were eyeing Buck Williams, there was stuff in the paper about that. Like that was like the big deal. And like I remember hearing we traded for Scottie Pippen on KGW Sports,
mhm.
6 o'clock news, and it was just like, holy crap, this happened. We're not quite that levels, but like it takes a lot of digging, like different,
And
forums and
people are trying to make up trade scenarios for clicks and views. Like you
yeah,
see
there's
it.
definitely ones that I just completely like anything from Sports Illustrated or MSN, like that I pass it
Or
over.
the
But
fan sided stuff. Like I'm
yeah,
on
no,
TikTok
it's
or
I
Insta.
think for me it's more of like all of the players who were posting on Twitter and had reliable information. It's just now dispersed like in
Well, I
all different
mean,
places.
you know
So
how
just,
X is.
oh yeah, that's why
I mean, you rarely post on X. I
I
only am
don't.
on X for
I
injury issues.
yeah, I'm about to deactivate my account. We deactivated the Holy Backboard account
Yeah,
just on
like
Instagram now.
it is like if you're, I don't know, man. Like I think you have to take everything in terms of trades with a humongous grain of salt because of what we are as a journalistic society with, bro, if I said, you know, like we're trading Jeremy Grant for X, Y, and Z, that's gonna get 30,000 views really quickly. Or even more. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's an easy way of generating views. So people are doing it. So be careful in this trade season with all of the stuff. Look at like all of those trade machines. Does this trade even work financially? Because
Yeah.
don't get excited about, Lonzo Ball getting traded to Charlotte for his brother for players that make $1 million a year. It can't work. So I think we have to be more judgy about the information that we look and react to, especially this time of year.
All right, I think that about wraps this one up. Another great episode in the books. Sage, take us home.
All right, we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you really get your podcasts, we are there. And if they're not, hit us up on IG and I'll put us there. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you after we know more news.